The UEE would like to remind you that... Oh, who cares? I met Chris Roberts. It was great. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Son of a bitch, you're such a fanboy.
Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens. I am your host, Bridger, and I'll be taking you through our great exploration of the Star Citizen event at Pax East this past weekend. And joining me, as always, I have my good friend, Calathulu. Welcome, Callie. And I didn't put it over to you because fail. There we go. Okay, I found you.
Thank you, Bridger. Much appreciated. I always enjoy some camera time. Gotta get the glorious beard out there somehow.
Yes, speaking of beards, have you heard about the neckbeard man who is wanted by all of the UEE citizens and pirates alike?
I even commented in that thread on Reddit, say, someone posted a random name and no other details. So I'm assuming they think that the person they posted is it, but they wouldn't confirm it when I asked. So still, it's a mystery. But I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to put out there a 10,000 UEC bounty if you can find me proof of who that was.
So what you're saying is we need some video from the upper balcony of the event. So for those of you not sure what the hell we're talking about, you may have been living under a rock this past week. We'll catch you all up in just a minute. First, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us. Tales of Citizens presented by Team Legacy, Unrepented Gaming, and the Sound Strategy Network. We're glad you got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. Tell a friend or two, won't you? And now, I do want to point out, just a quick reminder, that we are flip-flopping our schedule now. We had 2 shows in a row, one on the 6th and one on the 13th, and next week we will be skipping a show. So normally this week would be the week we're skipping, so I know some of you might get a little bit confused if you missed that note last week, so I'm just reminding you all here. All right, check out any of the show notes that we have about this at talesofcitizens.com and send us feedback. If you have any questions you'd like us to discuss in the show, feedback at talesofcitizens.com. All right, life in the verse. It's only been a week, Callie, but have you been doing anything while waiting for the dogfighting module? I'm sorry. We should rename it right now. We need to stop calling it the DFM because it is Arena Commander.
That's true, Arena Commander. You're absolutely right, which was a pretty cool little reveal there. Very game inside of a game inside of a game. No, I actually picked up the Elite Dangerous Alpha. Premium Beta, whatever they're calling it.
Premium Beta, there. I think they call it.
Premium Beta, yeah. So I've watched some gameplay videos of that. I've been enjoying what I've been seeing. I'm a huge fan of this kind of space sim, even if Elite Dangerous is not as, what's what I'm looking for here, ambitious as Star Citizen. It does capture that old privateer feel very well. So I picked that up and looking forward to really playing with that.
Excellent. Well, I haven't been doing too much except preparing for and then going to PAX East, but I can share my little story of woe because right as my wife got up, and I have to say, I'm thankful that it happened once she got there, but just boom, the radiator just shit the bed right in the parking garage. Just radiator fluid everywhere, and we had to spend the entire first half of Saturday finding and getting the car to a repair facility somewhere in Boston, Massachusetts. Luckily, we had AAA, so it didn't cost us anything to do that. But then it was like $400 to repair the radiator shield or something that had blown. And then we had to be back there before the show, before the store closed, so that we could get the car and pay. So we only spent about 3 hours of PAX on Saturday. It was very unfortunate, but we did get a little time to walk around, and I had all day Friday to walk around with the other TL guys. We'll talk more about PAX itself in a little bit. Not much else that I've been doing last week, to be honest. So that's about it for me.
It's only been a week.
That's true. We typically go on that bi-weekly. So let's jump right into the dogfighting module, a.k.a. Arena Commander, and the reveal that happened this past week. So I've got some footage here that was awesomely put together by somebody awesome who I can't credit because I can't remember. Oh my gosh. Somebody help me. The guy that put this together on YouTube, all of the Star Citizen scenes, I'll go look it up in a second, and then we'll take care of it. There we go.
Close that window.
All right. Well, this is it right here. You can see all of it stitched together, and I'll get him credit in a minute once we get talking. But it's really great, and I'll put the link in the show notes if you want to see just the the core gameplay footage without having to worry about stopping and dealing with the crashes, which were... Why don't we jump into that right now? Because I want to address this. There was a lot of misconceptions about what was happening at the event. A lot of people were watching the live stream, I think yourself included, right? And it looked like...
I hopped right in for that.
It looked like a hostile crowd.
Well, it wasn't hostile so much as loud and or boisterous. I mean, from the live stream, and I know you were there, so this gets us the two different, viewpoints right here. From the live stream, it sounded like you had a bunch of guys who had just come from a college football game and were still drunk off their ass, and were, basically yelling and being rude and shouting at the devs, and even in one case talking about bugs and crashes, making fun of them. Now, I know that was one or two guys, but a lot of people at home just watching the live stream didn't pick up on that. But what was your opinion being there at the event?
Well, from my opinion, everybody there that was anywhere around me and everything that I was super pumped to see this. And when it was revealed, the only thing I heard around me was, "Oh my God, did you notice that? Look at that. It's just great. I can't wait. When can we play it right now?" That's really literally what I heard the entire time around me. But my understanding is, and watching the live stream myself, or if you watch this video, you can hear that there are some very derisive comments by a couple of guys in the front row that we don't know the name of at this point. One or two guys, one guy specifically was quite loud in his, cry engine sucks and all this other stuff.
God.
I'd like to point out that is not a representation of the majority of the fans there. If you notice, whenever the game crashed, and I started this, by the way, when the game crashed, really all it meant was it was another opportunity to see the helmet flip right there.
Yeah, the helmet chant.
I started the helmet chant because as soon as I realized we were going to get to see that again, I was like, helmet, helmet. All the Team Legacy guys joined in, then we had half the crowd on my side joining in. It was awesome.
We have our attribution, by the way, in the Twitch channel. It looks like Kigamitia, and I cannot say that right because I don't think that's a word or a name that exists in any language.
Kigamitiya. He's got a bunch of videos on his YouTube channel. I will happily post that in the show notes here. I'm actually going to link the title right there to his video because it's all nice and cut. That's what we're putting on here. He did a great job.
And the thing of this is, like, watching the live stream, you didn't get a feel for it. Watching some of the stuff that came after you do, that PBR rendering is absolutely gorgeous. And even as we speak, is making my video card weep in agony.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to upgrade just for the DFM at this point. That's rough.
I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. We'll see, though. We'll see.
If it is that efficient, my hat is off. Because looking at that kind of thing, I'm blown away at how just incredible the graphics are. Even at the stage in an alpha, they look that pretty. I look forward to when everything is nicely finished and made more efficient with taking away some of the elements that aren't shown, which usually the first cut of these models is like everything is being rendered, even things you can't see inside the craft. So this will be really cool. I look forward to getting my hands on the DFM, which they said was what, May to June-ish?
No, they said specifically that they had hoped originally to get it out this week, like as in the 14th, 15th, 16th, but they are not quite there, obviously, with the crashes we saw, but that they were hopeful to get it out maybe next week or the last week of April. Sort of, they hedged their bets and said worst case scenario early May.
Okay.
Because it's pretty clear that it's very close. And it was very frustrating. I talked to a few of the devs afterwards, and they said, we had everything working perfectly 6 hours ago. I don't know what happened. And you know what? To their credit, I should have taken a picture of this. They had one of their technical guys looking through all of the error messages that had popped up in the console as soon as the presentation was over. Everybody was just crowded around Chris Roberts and Aaron Roberts and Sandy and Ben and Wingman, and this one guy was sitting up on the stage, this one poor guy looking through all the code trying to figure out what the hell happened in the dogfighting module.
I am a software engineer. I have been that guy giving customer demonstrations. It is not a good place to be. But it's funny because when things crash in that kind of environment, a customer demonstration, ironically, it's usually the best possible debug you can get because it's a live use of what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't be surprised if their next build is, massively more stable. But looking at some of the after action reports they put out, they were also saying that they had to use an old patch server that was, or a patch server that was local to Boston, and then that crashed the morning of the event. So they switched it back over to their patch server in Houston, which was a different version of the build than what they expected. So it looked like it was working early on, and then just blew up.
Yeah.
That was the after action they wrote down. I'm not sure if that was still the case 8 hours later.
The other problem they ran into, and this is my experience, is that there's no venue that ever has as much bandwidth as you want. If you want this much bandwidth, you go around to the venues in the area that you're looking for, none of them will have that much. Doesn't matter what you want. They'll never have as much bandwidth as you want. That's like a cardinal rule of trying to demo anything on the internet. Bring your own bandwidth, I think is the correct term. Because apparently that venue only had about 3 meg, which is not really very good.
And not what they've tested on, probably.
No, not at all.
They probably have some good, solid, dedicated 100 meg connections to their offices.
Well, the other thing that we talked a lot to the different devs and the people walking around there, and the rumor at the time was that, of course, they've been testing this in a LAN-based environment for the most part. I mean, they've been testing it over the internet, but semi-locally and with like some massive pipe going into their office, right? So they're used to having a lot of overhead buffer room for issues like this. In addition, the CryEngine defaults to sending a ton of information back and forth and tracking every physics object, etc. But they're going to be doing, and this is something that Chris explained on stage. Somebody was asking how they were going to handle, is it pure server, client, master, slave, or is there some simulation involved? And for those of you unaware with this, I'll throw in my 2 cents of what I remember about how all this works. And my first introduction to this goes all the way back in the days of Counter-Strike Beta 4. It was like Beta 8 or something. God. 7 to 8, yeah. Counter-Strike
not
Beta
Counter-Strike
8.
Go. Counter-Strike.
No, the original Counter-Strike.
All right, there we go.
And Valve added what is essentially client prediction. And so back in the day, all first-person shooters were just the client was it always behind the server by X milliseconds. Whatever your latency is, that's how far it is behind the server, essentially.
Actually, doubled.
It's doubled.
Because it's the trip there and the trip back.
Well, the server was updating positions of all of your enemies, right? So if you are if you're looking at a corner and an enemy comes around that corner, the server will immediately, as soon as the server sees the guy go around the corner, he's going to send that information to your client. But your client is going to get it, if you were back in the day on a 56K connection, going to get it a quarter of a second later, and it's already too late. He shot you because he's a low ping bastard. So what Valve... Yeah, exactly. LPBs. Hate those bastard LPBs.
Oh, man. I've not seen that term in a long time.
Right? So what Valve did, and what everybody else copied, was what's called client prediction. And everybody raged about this at the time. All it did was even the playing field. There were many situations where somebody with a 250 millisecond ping should have won a shootout because they technically shot first according to their skill and what was on their screen. But they would lose because the guy with a faster ping, even though he was slower to react and didn't get a headshot right away, his ping meant that the server saw his shot before the other guy's shot. So what Valve did was that in order to smooth out the client experience, and I'll bring this back to Star Citizen in a second, I'll promise. In order to smooth out the client experience, they allowed the client to predict the behavior of other players in the game world. So when, if the game saw, okay, so-and-so is running towards a corner, then when he goes around the corner, actually, so there's 2 parts of this. The client would then be able to predict the behavior of things, and it would also show things before they were officially confirmed by the server. If you remember, way back in the day, you would fire your weapon, and a split second later, the weapon would actually fire.
Yeah.
On every game you play today, it's instantaneous, even if you've got a 300 ping. It's because they changed it to just make that you don't have to check with the server to play the firing animation. They're just going to assume it works. So that's one part of it.
Doesn't check to see if you can fire anymore.
Yeah. The other part of it was that the game would sort of go back in time and say, okay, according to the clock that the server is running everywhere, when this person fired, that guy was in that spot. It doesn't matter that when it got to the server, it came to the server with a timestamp, essentially. And it said, at this time, this thing fired. The server goes back in time and says, okay, at that moment when he fired, there was a guy there. And this is how it results where sometimes you will die around the corner from the guy who shot at you. And he didn't actually have a line of sight to when it appeared that you died. Your character was like brought back into his line of sight. And you're like, what just happened? Well...
Yeah.
Your client was predicting that you would continue to live, and it was wrong. It's really what it comes down to. The problem with that, Callie, is cheating.
Oh, yeah. When you get the guys that are doing those speed hacks or things that are basically trying to generate the, I'm here, but I'm over there, but I won't move here, but I'm actually here, it basically confuses the server and think you're moving faster than you are or not in the same position that you are.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, is when you allow the client to dictate where it is instead of having the server be the master, it definitely smooths out the player experience, but it also opens up the game to hacking and people basically telling a server, no, I didn't take any damage there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yes, indeed.
I was 6 feet to the left and then back in that spot instantly.
Yeah. So that's the question that was asked. It's a very technical, detailed question about how you do the client-server relationship. And Chris Roberts' answer was that the server is ultimately going to be the master, but it's going to allow the clients to run their own simulation. Because the reason for that is if you didn't, you'd have a massive amount of bandwidth being dedicated to tracking every single object everywhere in the game. The idea is almost similar to the way RTS games work. Every game runs a simulation using exactly the same rules. And what that means is all you have to send back and forth between the client and the server is Unit X moved to these XY coordinates and fired at Unit Y. And the game will then know, okay, when this unit fires, it has this much damage and these upgrades. And so the simulation on both the server, the other peer-to-peer in an RTS game, and the clients is going to be identical because they're playing by the same rules. But if a hacker comes in, he can play by different rules because he made them up. And so as a result, they can override what the server says. So Chris's answer is they're going to meld those two, and the server is going to have certain tolerance levels. That the client will be able to be allowed to be off by this much, but he's off by any more, it's going to kick him out and assume that he's cheating.
Yeah, it's the trust but verify model.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to trust the clients telling us the truth, and we're going to verify that, which takes a lot less CPU time than doing all the calculations. But if you break our trust, then we're going to kick you and kick you hard.
Right, and that's a very detailed explanation for the short answer that we got, and it sounds like to me that's the best compromise between smooth
It's a very solid compromise, and it's one that a lot of different engines are going to. One example of doing it currently is PlanetSide 2. If you're found to be speed hacking in there, a lot of times they will kick you. Their detection of these violations isn't great, but it's getting there. So I think we'll see a lot of engines moving to that shortly.
Yeah, Andreas in the chat actually said Chris never flew into the light, and that's true. The first thing I did when I got my hands on the dogfighting module, the Arena Commander pre-alpha, in the Logitech booth, is I immediately tried to fly into one of those terraformers, and that's what they are, by the way. I thought they were mining lasers, but somebody corrected me and said they're terraformers. And I tried to fly right into them, and I was very disappointed when I didn't blow up.
Dude, I want to melt.
Yeah, right? I got to figure out what happens when I do things. But
I'm sure they'll add that 1 million damage beam shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, what else is going on here? So one of the cool things that happened, and I'll see if I can find an example of this in the videos in a second, is that you can actually see that radar display from the outside of the ship. There's a lot of detail in the cockpit that is visible not only in first-person mode, but by your opponents in third-person mode. So if you do make that really high-speed, close-range pass against an enemy, or even just look over at your friend on your wing, you'll be able to see details like their radar rendered in third person and it actively showing targets. Like, that's not a first-person only render.
But that's a difference from what I had expected, because based on the statements made after the event, and I wasn't there for any of this, that they said they might change the holographic image per helmet, which made it sound like the helmet was what had the heads-up display projected on it. But that's awesome. If you can fly by and actually see what the opponent sees on the radar, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's an awesome.
It's small enough that it's not going to be easy to see.
No.
But you're right. I think the thing is, though, the radar display, I got the impression that that is a holographic projection that is projected by the ship's dashboard. So, however, all the other information that you see on the left and right looks more like a two-dimensional hologram, put on the HUD of your helmet, essentially.
The Iron Man display.
Exactly. But the fact that those displays are all in 2D, right? They don't really look 3D, whereas the radar is designed to have a three-dimensional aspect to it. Okay. And that's why, we can see it right now. It's booting up, and it looks to me, and I'm going to make this bigger so I can see it. It looks to me like that radar is sort of cradled in that little piece of the middle there.
And you're right. That does look like a little orb.
The left and right. Oh, this is where he got stuck for some reason.
Oh.
There we go. Now, the other thing you'll notice is they have little points of light. I guess they're kind of supposed to look like specks of dust when you're traveling through space.
The space dust. The speed indicator.
Dust. The speed indicator, yeah.
That's what it is. From Wing Commander on, even TIE Fighter did this. Or wait, no, TIE Fighter didn't do this, but X-Wing versus TIE Fighter did. So in the original TIE Fighter game from 92, 90, something like that, you had no indication of speed except the readout on your display. So the complaint was very often, I'm not going fast enough, even at max speed. But in later games, like Wing Commander, the old Elite games, not the first one, but some later ones, they put these little elements on the HUD to show you how fast you were going, even though you weren't really traveling that fast. It's the same reason that in the Star Trek TV show, you can see the stars whizzing by, even though if you work out what the actual speed of the ships is, stars aren't whizzing by at that speed. It's to give the audience, or the player in this case, a feel that you're actually making pretty good speed.
Yeah, and I think we can... obviously there's no space dust that looks like that when you're flying through space. It doesn't just chill there waiting for you to and then appear white and appear harmless. Yeah. It's not moving, because otherwise that means all space dust is always at rest relative to everything, that you're at rest. Anyway, the idea is, let's pretend that that's part of the HUD element helping give you a that's how I see it. Let's pretend that it's part of the HUD element giving you the pilot a better indication of your movement vector. How else do you show that in a spaceship?
Well, and that's exactly what it is when you get down to it. It is part of the display giving you a better indication of what you're doing. So that's perfect. I like that. So they've got holographic space dust built in.
Yeah. Holographic three-dimensional space dust that exists outside the cockpit only. Yes.
Well, that's what those two little blue LEDs right there are doing for you.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was interesting is we can notice on the right-hand side of the HUD here, you've got RV, which is probably relative vector. That makes the most sense, because every time it looks like the other ship is accelerating away, the relative vector goes positive, and every time he gets getting closer, the relative vector goes negative. So that's pretty obvious what that is. RN looks like the distance, but I have no idea why it's labeled RN.
So RN, how would you refer to that?
Relative, I don't know. What's a synonym for distance that has that starts with an N? Go figure.
See, knots is a speed. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah,
actually.
But knots isn't measured in meters. Yeah.
No, it's not. It definitely is not. That's
furlongs. No, that doesn't start with that. Oh, here we go. See, you can see the radar in the player's ship, and it's
illuminating the vest.
Yeah. And it's actually, here you go. You can see it moving and rotating as he moves and rotates the ship. That's freaking
awesome
ridiculous detail. I love that.
Yeah, and then of course you can see here they got the articulated maneuvering thrusters working to speed it around. Now
Yeah.
you said you had a chance to sit down and play. How did the maneuvering thrusters feel in comparison to the main thruster in the back?
Well,
Were
damn,
they underpowered? Was it just right?
it was really difficult to tell because whoever set up, and I think they said it was the team in England, I guess, was working on this build for Squadron 42. They were huge fans of Descent, and I guess Descent uses the flipped aileron versus yaw controls,
Yes,
or I
it
should say
does.
roll versus yaw controls.
Well,
So
yes, it did. Yeah.
I would move the stick left in order to try
And you
to
would start
roll
to
left, and I would
spin.
instead start yawing left. And when I twisted the stick to yaw, I would roll instead. It was really frustrating. It was hard to get an accurate feel.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I remember Descent. She drive me nuts with that particular control.
But presumably, and hopefully in the first version, we'll have the ability to adjust those controls ourselves.
Yeah.
So as far as how it felt, and somebody else pointed this out as well, the Hornet feels like a heavy fighter. It feels a little bit sluggish to respond in order to turn around and things like that because it is a heavy fighter, right? It doesn't feel as nimble as something probably like a 300i would probably feel more nimble because it's got a lot fewer guns. It's probably got weaker shields and things like that.
Yeah.
So
more F-18 to the F-16 kind of feel.
Yes, exactly. That would be how I would characterize it, I think.
Okay.
So that's how I would say. So, the way I see it, the Hornet is the one in the dogfight that doesn't mind a head-on confrontation with you. It's like, I don't care if you can move faster and turn faster. If you and I line up on each other, you're going to die in that case. So
it's the jousting player's preferred.
Yes, that's exactly what I think it is. It's going to have heavy shields. It's got look how many weapons they got on the left that are all pointed forward.
It's ridiculous.
It
looks like there's external mounts for weapons or fuel tanks or what have you as well. So that's pretty cool.
Well, the ones in the bottom left are actually missiles, and you can see they're going away as he's launching them. So then it's got the cannon on the front, which is not articulated. Then the ball turret and the two cannons on the wings are articulated. The ball turret is articulated, and the front is articulated. I think it's got like something underneath the front.
Now, was the articulation just a natural part of picking a target and then aiming at it, or was it something that, I noticed on the forums, people are saying, I've got track IR, so when I move and look at a different element on the screen, I'm hoping the turret will gimbal over there and shoot at it while I'm flying a different direction. Do you think that's likely, or that not how it played out at all?
That's actually, I've heard, even before the dogfighting module, that's what I've heard the devs say, is they want that to be another possible axes, set of axes for you to use, is track IR or Oculus Rift. And specifically, the most likely use of those would be the gimbaled weapons. In fact, I believe Vin from Team Legacy, who is a Navy pilot, or in the Navy in the flight section. I'm not sure of his actual designation, but I know that he's involved in there somewhere, and he's talked about how there are helicopters that actually use track IR style head tracking to work the gimbaled weapon that's on the front of the helicopter. So
that's how the Apache front gun works as well.
That's what I'm thinking of, I think. So that not only is it possible, it's actually used in real life. So I see that as being the superior method of flying a Hornet, is using an Oculus Rift to get those extra 2 axes. Because when we're looking at this, if you include the gimbaled thrusters, we're actually talking 8 axes of motion.
Degrees of freedom, yeah. That's going to be pretty interesting. Well, 8 degrees of targeting. That should be interesting.
Right, 8 degrees, 8 axes of something that you need to manipulate, essentially.
So you have 6 degrees of freedom and 8 axes of targeting. I can see Oculus sales already going up.
Absolutely. However, not every ship is going to have gimbaled weaponry. Not every not every ship is going to need it. Some ships are going to rely on their own maneuverability. I see the 300i as probably being an example of that, or the 325 maybe. Because the 325, I think, has a couple extra maneuvering thrusters over the regular 300, right?
Yeah, the 325 seems to be an actual hull difference based on the last specs update.
I believe it was 12 versus 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they had about 50% more, which was a big deal.
And the Hornet has only 8, actually. So that's where you can see the sort of advantage going there. Okay. Now, some people were very terribly upset that Chris Roberts used a 360 controller for the demo because
that heathen.
I know. I thought he was a member of the great PC master race.
Well, not everyone can be a full-fledged member of our PC master race.
I guess not. No, that's. And I spoke to some of the people after, and I heard him talking about this, and the reason that he likes using the 360 controller specifically for demos is because you've got those two joysticks, and it's really easy to show off the visuals of the game with the two joysticks because you can do the third-person view and you can rotate it visually as you are showing off the maneuvering thrusters and things like that, and the weapon gimbling and things like that. So that specifically is the reason that he was using it, because for a demo, it allows you to show the game off better, but not necessarily control it better from a first-person perspective. So the
great fear that the 360 controller is going to be preferred is not a realized fear; it's a form fear.
Yeah, it's really just not the case, especially because I can't imagine aiming with such a small joystick is really what it comes down to. I mean, we have problems with the large joysticks even.
Yeah, well, I've been trying that with the Elite Dangerous executable and playing with it a little bit and trying to use that 360 controller, and boy, is it hard to keep a fixed shot on a maneuverable fighter when you're doing that. So I can't imagine that would be the preferred.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and somebody found the control scheme for the Extreme 3D Pro, actually. And I sort of figured these out by pressing random buttons. Oh my gosh, I can't make this small again. There we go. I'll see if I can get this up here. Hang on a second. Stand by.
Okay.
Stand by. Well, stand by. There we go.
While you're doing that, I'll throw out here, they actually have confirmed the PAX panel Linux support for the game, which is awesome. It's nice to see that making the rounds finally to the mainstream.
It was funny. I was sitting next to Ruok Blau, another Team Legacy member, during that PC Gamer Future of PC Gaming. And Chris Roberts just dropped that bomb in the middle of just some entirely somebody was asking about Microsoft, or he was talking about Microsoft, and he's like, well, you know, Microsoft has a stranglehold, and oh, by the way, we'll have Linux support, and blah, 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 and Ruok turns to me, he's like, what did he just say?
Hold on, wait a minute. That's awesome. Well, that's good news. You know, Valve has been trying to get in that market for a while and make that kind of the go-to OS. In fact, I hear the Valve box. I don't hear that. I know that the Valve box actually has the Linux as the back end on it. So if you download that, you can use it today. So, hey, we're starting to see a big shift in the way developers are putting games out.
Yeah.
As far as targeting the OS.
You know, 100% sure that the reasoning about the Xbox 360 controller. I don't have a picture of it. Maybe somebody in the chat does, but there was a little schematic, very similar to the one I just showed you for the Logitech one, saying this button does this button does that. On the 360 controller, they had to have two separate shift buttons that would change functionality in order to match what was essentially entirely one control scheme on the Logitech. The Logitech's got 12 buttons, and it's got 3 different axes, so it gets you most of the way there. The only thing that the Logitech obviously had a toggle for turning the IFCS on and off so that you could fly around backwards and stuff. But the 360 controller had a shift button that would change all of the thumb buttons, X, Y, A, B. All of those buttons got changed, and I think then you also would click the left joystick in order to strafe left, right, up, and down. Yeah. But unless you can strafe left, right, up, and down while doing other things, it's not going to be useful in combat. Like, okay, I'm going to pull up, and then once I get here, I'm going to stop pulling up and strafe for a little while.
Strafing here, yeah.
No, that's not going to work. You need to do everything simultaneously.
Well, you got those 2 thumb buttons, so I can see where you got the bumpers for thrust up, thrust down, and reverse, right? And then you've got the two little thumbsticks, so you could do strafe up, strafe down, left, right, and then the pitch, yaw, and roll on the other one. So
yeah, the thing is,
they remapped it.
Yeah, so I think they were using the right stick for forward, back, and left and right, something like that. Either way, what it comes down to is it didn't have enough axes or buttons to do everything that they wanted to do without shift commands. So that's why I think it's pretty clear that that is not the control system of choice.
No. In fact, based on all this, I'm thinking more and more that second left-handed joystick is really worth a look.
So two joysticks set up.
Two joysticks set up, and then like on your left stick, nosing forward, that's your thrust up. Pulling back, that's your thrust down. And then spinning that will get you the strafing up, strafing down. The rolling it to the left, that's going to be the strafe left. Rolling it to the right, that's going to be the strafe right on that left-handed joystick. And then you got yaw, pitch, and roll on the first joystick. So there you've got just about everything you need. And then, of course, if you're crafty and have a ton of on-stick buttons, you'll be able to map everything through there that you're looking for.
The other concern, the other possibility, I should say, is a HOTEM, hands on stick and mouse.
Okay.
What if you had your left hand? If you could get your left hand to know how a full joystick works, like because my mouse hand and my joystick hand are both my right hand. But if you could train your left hand to work a joystick that wasn't right-handed only, like the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro is molded for a right-handed grip. But if you could get a joystick that was neutral in that respect.
The Thrustmaster 16000M, I think, is a neutral
believe that's
one.
a neutral one, yeah. So if you could get one of those, then that would be your joystick for all purposes, just like a normal joystick. You've got twist for yaw, and you've got up and down and then roll, and then you could use the hat switch to do strafe left, right, up, down, and then you use the mouse for the gimbaled, precise, precision, accurate controls of shooting your weapons.
Or use the right mouse button to toggle on the mouse strafe kind of thing. So you'll strafe along where the mouse is pointing. I can kind of see where you'd go with that. Yeah,
awesome. I see that being a viable setup, but it would take a lot of training to do for most people, unless they happen to learn a joystick with their left hand and they happen to learn a mouse with their right hand, in which case they're like, it is my time. They called me fool. to become ambidextrous, but I will show them.
Former Army tank drivers, I think, are already used to the dual stick setup for the.
Sure enough. So
that population is set.
So that's certainly possible. Most likely the way that I'm going to do is I'm going to start. I've got my Extreme 3D Pro. I'm going to start with that and just use the hat for strafing and just see where that takes me. And I'm going to wait until they talk about the that's another thing I wanted to point out. Speaking with the devs, they made this comment. There's no partner for a Star Citizen joystick. Everybody just assumed that it was SciTech because of that video.
Yeah. Well, because SciTech dropped off like 50 of the X55s at their site. But they were in Logitech's booth for Pax East. Doesn't that really imply something?
Yeah, I think it implies that both of those groups are courting them, trying to say, choose me for your official joystick.
Here's Sig's subtle shout to SciTech saying, hey, you know what? We appreciate the work you've done with us, and we aren't closing our options. And you can come to the Logitech booth and see us there. Did SciTech have a Pax East booth at all, or not so much?
I don't think they did. I can look it up, though. I think I still have Guidebook on here. I never saw one while I was wandering around. SciTech is a very niche hardware producer. Logitech has a lot of mainstream stuff, like mouse, keyboards, headsets, right? So that's they could afford a bigger booth than SciTech. So possibly SciTech was there in a tiny booth on the side. I'm going to look it up for you right now.
And I'd point out, you say SciTech is niche, and you're right, but I actually have an X52 sitting here on my desk because I am such a big flight sim fan. And then on top of that, one thing we didn't talk about with the peripherals a minute ago was getting foot pedals. If this is going to be that real old-style flight sim kind of thing, you can get a couple degrees of freedom of movement out of a pair of foot pedals. Causing you to do the strafe left, strafe right, or whatever you get, or thrust up, thrust down like a car, acceleration, deceleration kind of pedal. So you got some options there as well. Yeah, there's a ton of peripherals if you just look at like Newegg, for example.
Yeah.
And their site just listing everything. No, I'm not getting paid by Newegg. You can drop that right now.
The thing is, foot pedals are used for yaw, right? In most things, and yaw often has a large degree, like it's not off or on, like you're not yawing left or you're not. You usually like, I want to, right now I need to yaw left 20% or 30% or 50% in order to, that's how you aim, right? That's the thing. Anything that involves your aim needs to have a large degree of precision, which means you need to have a 0 to 100% or even 256 or 512 if you break it up that discreetly, range of motion. So a keyboard has two states, on and off. So A and D make it very difficult. The WASD is very difficult to actually fly a plane with because
and aim.
Yeah, because that means your ailerons are either at 100% or 0%, and so you can't aim that very well.
War Thunder's arcade mode is just dominated by the mouse keyboard group. Although their professional battles, like the high end battles, or whatever you want to call them, those are the HOTAS setups or the joystick setups. So I'll be curious to see where this goes. I think the difference is, so in something like War Thunder with a mouse, it was called like the 0th degree of precision. But in this game and others,
a zero order controller.
Thank you, zero order control. And in this one, it's a first order control. So that makes the keyboard a little more, I'm looking for, competitive to a mouse. And it may be that we'll find that the mouse for aiming, because of this virtual joystick system they put in, doesn't give you the kind of precision you want. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess, after the docket module is revealed.
Sure.
But
we're going to talk. And in fact, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. I meant to have this conversation in 2 weeks, so we'll jump back more into the peripherals. There's a lot more to talk about with the peripherals next week. So let's go look back a little bit more into what we have available here. We talked about the sort of the targeting view on the right and what you could see there. Obviously, the blackout. Vin was complaining because they didn't have red out. They only had one effect put into the game so far for that.
They're going to add it.
I'm sure we'll see a slightly different effect for red out at some point. The other thing that was not super obvious, but if you look at it very carefully, you can actually see it right here. There is completely dynamic lighting. The light sources cast shadows dynamically off of every object.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't seem like a big thing, but I've played way too many first-person shooters that only had dynamic lighting for set pieces, right?
Yeah, like the flashlight on the gun was the only thing that did dynamic lighting, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or the room that had the swinging light because it was a creepy room or whatever. That room, the light itself was programmed to have dynamic lighting. It was all rendered ahead of time. It wasn't being done in real time, so not every room had dynamic light. But look at here, you can see the light on the ship is casting the shadows, but the lights of all the other light sources in the game also seem to dynamically be lighting up the Hornet and casting shadows on it, and it just looked amazing.
Yeah, and this is gonna be cool for, like, even right here with illuminating the asteroid. That's gonna be pretty cool for the mining game, where you're looking for those super valuable mineral seams. So you're just actually looking for glints or certain colors reflecting. I mean, that's awesome. That's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, and the other thing, look at the wings of the Hornet. They have those little. I'll take it back a second. They have those flares, little lights that literally light up. You can see it right there. Hang on, it's coming back. It's coming back. It's going to pop back out any second. There we go. You can see they have lights on the Hornet lighting up the wing tops. So you can see the logo on the left and right wing. So if you were trying to identify this Hornet visually, you would not need to shine a light on it. You could just use a telescope or some kind of optic and look at the wing, and you could see it's number 207 or whatever that says there with the V symbol. So they've got actually those lights on the wings lighting up like it looks like a real fighter plane. It's so freaking cool. The little details. And, of course, the landing lights, like the blinking red light. Target me! Target me! Target me!
Aim here! Aim here! Aim here!
Something's like.
But I'm sure they're going to have a cool running kind of mode.
A combat mode. Frank, your landing lights are still on. We're trying to go do this stealthily, Frank.
Hell, your landing gear is still deployed. You've got to stop that.
Yeah, because of all that drag in space.
Well, but think about it. It does open up your hull a little bit. Explosion right there.
I spoke too soon. That is a very good point. Oh, he's flying backwards, guys! The crowd went wild when he flew backwards.
I know. I heard that. It was that and the chant of helmet that made me realize that it was just a couple guys next to the mics that were the problem.
Yeah. So the other thing that we saw in here, obviously you see the left-hand HUD, and the HUD is clearly unfinished, obviously, but the thrust indicator there is really cool. And I'm not sure what it means when it sort of blinks red. I wonder if that means it's doing too much G-forces and it's getting you closer towards blackout.
Or if your thrusters could overheat.
Maybe.
Ooh. Do that too much, and now you're drifting in a straight line. That would suck.
That's entirely possible. Okay, so I have to say, I was completely blown away by their theming for Arena Commander, right? Was that not the most brilliant idea ever?
That was awesome to watch. I agree. That was a great idea. Tie it back into the Wing Commander franchise.
I honestly expected this just to be some component to keep us tided over until the game comes out, essentially. I mean, I know they promised an arena mode as the one of the stretch goals a while ago, but I didn't realize that's what they were making now. Like, I thought that would be something they'd come back to later, but no, we're getting the arena mode first, and they're polishing that as if it's a full strength, full high level component of the game, and then it's going to stay built into the game. So it's not even something that goes away. It's not something that this builds into. This is it. That's brilliant.
And for those people who are worried about the esports, lack of esports support, they're starting with it pre-alpha. What more could you ask for?
Exactly. They've got leaderboards and everything, and they're going to talk about having contests for the best top guilds or orgs. That's fantastic. They even told me, I think Ben I was talking to, no, it was Wingman, said that they even had they had it ready, but it just wasn't finished testing. They couldn't be sure it was going to work, where you log it. The way they wanted to do it was you log into your hangar and you sit and you go over to this console and you sit down in this virtual environment, put on your own sort of VR Oculus Rift equivalent in the future, and then you appear in that hangar and you pull up your gloves and you walk into the new PBR experience. Like, that's how they wanted to reveal it, because that's how we're going to get to play it. You play everything through the hangar. You enter your hangar, you go into the sim. Oh, that's such a good fucking idea.
So you go into the sim, which goes into your virtual hangar?
Yeah, you go into that. You play in the hangar to go into your virtual hangar to play your virtual game on your computer, which using an Oculus Rift is already a virtual game. I heard you liked space sims, so I put a space sim in your space sim.
Which is awesome.
And original systems, I can't believe that didn't hit me until I saw Arena Commander, and then I'm like, the play on words. All right.
Origin, original, which is an awesome kind of tongue-in-cheek look at that too. Wasn't something that Robert said that one of his big regrets was kind of selling his studio to Origin, but if he had to do it again, he would, because the money was that good.
I thought Origin was his.
Or no, EA.
Okay.
Origin was his, and EA picked it up. My bad. Now he's got original.
One of the quotes I distinctly remember. I used to collect all these quotes in a big text file, and one of the quotes I have in there, and I didn't even realize it until recently that it just came to me. Origin Systems. A game is only late until it ships, but it sucks forever.
Yes.
That is a fantastic philosophy.
True. Yeah, that's exactly. And Blizzard used to have that philosophy. Not to diss Blizzard. I know some of the guys that work there, they're all hardworking guys. It's this whole, shove it out to meet a deadline. I mean, as much as their fans want the game in hand, Diablo 3 was way too early. My hope is that with this model that SIG is going for, that when they do release it, it is the ready, finished product and not something that they've shoved out to meet expectations. But speaking of releasing, I hear we got a little update on that.
We did. They did confirm that the goal is to release Squadron 42 in early 2015, which is a little bit further back than we originally hoped for. But it will be closer. It will be released complete. Originally, people thought we were going to get like an alpha version of it, but a couple of weeks ago in the official, what was it, the 10 for the chairman or something to that effect, or maybe Wingman Hangar, Wingman. Well, you know what? He deserves that because he called it Tales of the Citizens. I kid, Mr. Peterson.
Speaking of, we didn't mention, we actually, specifically, Bridger, were mentioned on Fan Focus in the last Wingman's Hangar.
That's
episode
right.
64.
That felt great. I was glad,
awesome.
But let's not kid ourselves. We were mentioned because I'm not doing this by myself. We got you and Gray and Tim and Aloran and everybody else who helped me out with graphics and everybody else who's given me support in any other way, helped me out. Thanks to everybody because we were making a very good product that a lot of people like and we got recognized for it. So that was really cool.
And I think that deserves a solid pat on the back.
Oh yeah, is that what we're doing? Okay. So, Squadron 42 to get delivered in early 2015, but it's going to be complete and it's going to be episodic. You're going to get 10 mission chunk and it's going to be done. Final build. And then you're going to get another 10 mission chunk and another 10 mission chunk and another 10 mission for a total of 50 missions. So, theoretically, that's going to probably come out in groups close to the game's release. And then when the final Squadron 42 is released, that is right before the full open persistent universe goes into full release.
Yeah, which would be cool because they were saying they wanted tie-ins, and so it must be it might be. Let's not say must. Okay, this is all pre-alpha. Everything we say here is entirely speculative. It might be that you have to finish the 10 mission chunk, which unlocks a flag on your account that gives you something in that public universe and something like that. They thought that they wanted Squadron 42 to roll back in and feed back into the private universe. So we'll see what happens. And then to answer Big Chunk 1, quote, I hope S42 comes before the private universe. Quick answer, it will. It absolutely will. I don't see the public universe coming in 2015 personally. They've got a lot of work to do to build that MMO. I'm thinking 2016.
Oh, come on, man. That's breaking my heart. I'm thinking we're supposed to get the beta for the persistent universe by the end of 2014.
Released in 2015. They might have a beta product out there. And I'm hoping that they do.
That's a long time. I'm thinking we get like January 2015 we're going to get the first 10 episodes. February we get the next 10. March we get the next 10, and then by June we'll see a persistent universe pulling everything together and getting a full release. That's my optimistic hope. But based on the quality of the dogfighting module, which was above and beyond my expectations.
Yeah, they're doing a great job regardless. I mean, for the most part, these games take years to develop, and they're doing this in a much faster fashion than I've seen from the publisher-owned studios.
Yeah, so but remember, they're starting with a full engine that's for the most part set to what they want. They're customizing it, yes, but they're not building an engine from the ground up, which is, I would argue, what takes the majority of the time. Oh, this is the part where he tried to destroy the plane and couldn't until he landed it.
I was like, oh, well, I guess he's invulnerable right now. And then he goes over the landing platform, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, he landed so gently too, and the plane just exploded. That was the camel.
It's like it must have been on that last hit point.
Yeah, it must have been. Okay, so let's see, what else are we missing here? The Freelancer commercial. I didn't get this piece myself, but a lot of people are saying they heard it confirmed that the Freelancer commercial, or at least what they think is going to be the Freelancer commercial, is coming in May, and also potentially the variants with it. A lot of that is speculation and rumor, but it seems to be in so many places that it might very well be true.
Yeah, May is what I heard as well, and then the follow-on to that is that the Constellation commercial comes after the Freelancer, and then after the Constellation comes the Cutlass. So we're going to see, hopefully, all three of those in short order here.
In addition, as Vin is pointing out there was a really interesting discussion about how EW is going to work, electronic warfare, about how there is going to be, and we've heard this before, Chris has said he wants every system in the game to be skill-based. Nothing is going to be my number's bigger than yours, so I win, essentially. He wants everything to be skill-based, including, for example, hacking into an enemy ship. So Aaron, for example, gave the example that you're trying to shut down the systems of an enemy ship, so you can hack into their systems remotely and open up an airlock to depressurize it and maybe kill a few people or have them fly out the airlock. Or you could use it to shut down their shields just before your missiles get there. Like, their systems will reboot, but you could do it just as the right moment so that your missiles pass through for that brief envelope. D Kaiser, I got it now.
D Kaiser, well done.
D Kaiser, it's gonna be some kind of mini game. I mean, you could make it any mini game, but I hope it's a mini game with depth, at least some semblance of depth. I mean, you could make it. What is it? What game is it that uses the old pipe snake game?
Good lord.
It's Alien Swarm, right? You play a little game where you're trying to get to match up all the pipes so they're in the right direction so that when the stuff flows through. I don't remember what the hell that game was called, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
Somebody
also,
in the
Warframe
chat
does something similar for ciphers in that.
Yeah. So hopefully it's something similar to that, but maybe a little bit more deep, I would hope, in terms of the hacking mini game that they have there. And we'll see.
Yeah. Also, a little news from the same discussion about the Idris was they said it would be able to be piloted with one person running it and an NPC crew. That was another quote attributed to that same conversation. However, and this is what led to the whole hacking counter-hacking point, the NPCs will not be able to do these mini games for you. So you'll have to have someone in the chair, and they'll get a basic level of competency in it, but only players can actually handle the mini game aspect. So that should be interesting as well. Again, I wasn't there. I'm just reading what I've heard as first-hand reports on the forums. But if you haven't caught that bit yet, for people concerned that you would not be able to fly your Idris without having other actual players, you can. It may just be terrible.
Yeah. At that point, why even allow it is my question. But we'll see.
We'll see. It's going to be a lot of balancing. They may decide to change that. They may decide that it gets a little better. I kind of think that any multi-crew ship like that, any crew with, say, 10 slots for players probably isn't going to be a solo thing. But that's my take on it. And not everyone agrees with me, and I respect every opinion that doesn't, and even a few that do. So. And then there is actually one question I think we need to address here. It's very important. It stands near and dear to all of our hearts. It came across the live stream. Bridger, in your estimation, can we trade fish from exotic planets?
Well, no, and here's why. So, Chris Roberts explained it quite elegantly. These are basically achievements. They're what you bring back with you from distant places to show where you've been. You're supposed to have your hangar filled with stuff that you've achieved. Like, I went all the way to Omicron 3, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. So that is, I believe, his goal with these. So if you were able to trade them, you could sit in your hangar or just go between two planets and make a ton of money and buy all the fish you want or all the trophies, and then it would mean nothing. So when you show somebody a picture of your hangar and it's filled with memorabilia from across the verse, that's not an achievement like, I dominated the universe, but it's like, look how awesome I've been playing this game, I've been doing all this stuff. It's not, it's not an achievement, but it's an achievement. You know what I mean?
I've been everywhere, and I've seen some shit. That's what that achievement is. Though, my hat's off. I tip my hat to that guy for going that far to ask that question. I have to imagine he was just caught in the headlights. I want to ask something, and all that came to him was fish.
Yeah. So, the questions that I came up with for this episode, I was trying to come up with good questions because there's just lots of stuff to talk about how awesome it was. But
you were worried we wouldn't get to an hour, and I think you're just wrong.
Yeah, well,
I'm chatty. What can I say?
I have to underestimate ourselves, otherwise, Anyway, did Arena Commander meet or exceed my expectations? Well, I might not be the best person, so let me ask you first. What about your thoughts?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? Based on the live stream, my first take on it was that was a dud. The graphics, the game itself looked awesome. The level of readiness that they had shown on the first pass of the live stream, and I actually wrote these notes down so I could talk about it, knowing I would get corrections later. It just didn't come across as being quite done yet. And don't get me started on the Twitch chat roll. I want to find a way to set fire to every troll in there. Let's be clear on this. I'm talking about spontaneous combustion as willed by me. All right, separate issue. But that said, on recursive passes, looking at the footage, looking at the things they showed, reading some more about the actual details we couldn't see or have come across from that video, it was awesome. And I would say, based on the graphics and the way that the flight model looks, and then everything else, it exceeded my expectations for the first pass at the dogfight module, now called Alpha Commander.
Arena Commander.
Arena Commander. Damn, see, it's just too new. I'm not up to these terms yet.
Yeah, right? So, for me, I was keeping my expectations low on purpose. I was making sure I didn't get excited because I could really see them releasing something called pre-alpha or something called alpha and having it actually be a real alpha product with no polish whatsoever. I was very happy with what we got, especially with the theming they put onto it to make it a part of the universe, a part of the world. And the way they explained we're going to get, Arena Commander version 2 and Arena Commander version 3 as quote-unquote sequels to the original, that was great. And what is going to be in them was great, too. It's fantastic. I can't wait to fly around in my 300i and then in my Freelancer. Yes!
Yeah, now, that said, you said you kept expectations low, and yet you're the guy that traveled to Boston. Not as far as Gray traveled to
I
Boston,
was traveling for PAX anyway, to be fair.
Oh, okay. That's what it was.
Yeah. But
that didn't feed into your decision at all, was that pre-PAX event.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was going to look and play worse than what Elite Dangerous was playing like, a month ago, because I saw a very impressive Elite video. I think we talked about it on the show, about how the guy was like hiding and the screen was icing up when he turned everything uncool. And I think it's safe to say that Star Citizen is further behind than Elite was a month ago. So it still is, but it's not that much further behind.
And I'm going to go with, given, we talked this a little bit before, but we'll reiterate here, the scopes of these games are different. I mean, Elite is trying to be a follow-on to the old Elite series. It is a game about flying your fighter, or maybe a larger ship, in space. It's got multiplayer aspects, which is awesome, but it's not trying to be a first-person shooter and a full-fledged MMO. And everything else, it's limiting the scope of what it's accomplishing to the space flight sim of yore, and Star Citizen is looking at a much more ambitious scope. If you've not heard about Elite Dangerous, I want to point out I'm a backer on both. I love everything in this flight sim genre, and Elite was the big competitor to Wing Commander back in the day. So, they both got their funding at about the same time, which to me just talks about how things go in circles, really. But, you can actually play that beta right now and check it out. But I'm going to say, based on the video I saw and the actual time I've spent playing Elite Dangerous, it's going to be a lot more immersive to play Star Citizen. I couldn't find the name for a second there. So, there you go.
So to put it in perspective, and I'll show, this is what I was talking about. Here we are. Oops, flipping it open. So one of the things that I thought was really cool about this is how they incorporate the HUD elements as part of their menus. And I know that Chris mentioned that they're going to do a very similar thing in Star Citizen. In
fact, you can see those HUD elements blacked out or grayed out when the ship comes up. They're just holding that bluish color with static.
And the other thing about it is the Moby glass, the thing that you wear on your wrist that displays like a screen for you, that's where it's going to be, essentially. But there are some really cool elements, and I'll put the link to this video in if you wanted to see this as well. But this is from about a month ago. Let me see. This is February 10th. So about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, actually.
2 months ago.
And it's got some commentary about what he's doing and why he's doing it. Still, obviously, in an alpha state as well. And I was kind of worried when I saw this. I was like, man, this looks really cool. And now I have something to set the bar now for Star Citizen. But I was still as blown away by Star Citizen as I was the first time I saw this in terms of just the polish and the quality.
And I want to point out, these games, I've already seen this on some of the forums for both Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen. These games are not competitors. It's not one or the other. I mean, that this genre has come back effectively from the dead. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen a real space sim. Is wonderful, and I think this is fantastic.
I think
Which is why I
Westwood's
back both
Earth and
projects.
Beyond might have been the last one, wasn't it?
Wow, I can't even recall Earth and Beyond, which tells you a lot.
It
My
didn't
memory's
last
not great,
long,
but yeah.
but I
I
remember
mean, there have been
enjoying it
some.
for what it was.
Yeah, Evocron Mercenary, very independent effort. There was Jump Point, Jump
Earth
something.
and Beyond was 2002, and it was basically an MMO at the
And that
time.
was okay. There you go. And then Freelancer was also 2002, and it wasn't quite that. It wasn't quite the old like game, like the way that Wing Commander felt and played, or TIE Fighter felt and played, and that kind of thing. But the point is, these genres are finally coming back because even though the publishers were saying you can't do it, we as gamers said, you know what, we want this stuff. So publishers, F off.
Now,
And it's good to see that that made something.
maybe you can answer, because I've been trying to figure out exactly what do you compare Elite Dangerous to? Is it more like a multiplayer version of the X series where you can have like 2 or 3 or 10 other people in it?
That's a really good comparison. And it doesn't have at least that I've heard of, it doesn't have the same like economy game. There's no building space stations like you could in X3. That kind of thing. I'm not even going to touch X for Earth. That's a conversation for another time. Uh, but I don't think it has the same economy model, but there is a lot of buying goods in one spot, trading them and selling them somewhere else, customizing your ship, buying new ships, that kind of thing. So
I just got the impression that it was an MMO and it was going to have a persistent universe that you could fly around in with hundreds of other people. Is that wrong?
from what I've been reading, that doesn't sound like what they're going for. It's a multiplayer thing. You can run servers that are persistent, kind of like you could run the freelancer server, but I haven't seen that they want to have this centralized area. I could be flat wrong. I mean, it's Jump Point. Thank you, D. Kaiser. Talking about the other game that never actually got released. I was looking forward to that one too. But yeah, it wasn't anything I came across is that Elite Dangerous was going to be an MMO. If there was going to be MMOs, great. Yeah, the market's certainly there for it. Both have a lot of backers.
Yeah, it's odd because Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen both seem to have this problem of defining what they are. I feel like, because I'm serious. When I first saw the Star Citizen Kickstarter, I was like, so what the hell is this? Is it single player? Is it multiplayer? I just don't know. There's no fucking information there. Go back and look at the Kickstarter. Maybe they edit it though, but when it first showed up, I had no idea what the hell it was.
The Kickstarter came across as the Wing Commander for this generation.
Right, like a single-player game.
Which was fine. A single-player game. That's what Squadron 42 is and was. That was what their initial, if we can get it for $4 million, we can make this game, was. It was going to be probably the Van Duel and a few ships there, and it was going to be the Hornet and the Idris, and maybe a couple other ships flying around that were larger, like maybe Retaliate or something like that. It wasn't going to be the public universe and the MMO aspect. They wanted to do boarding actions. That was one of the early Kickstarter goals. I think it'd be something like, and I'm going to guess this was going to happen, is you'd be boarding a ship populated by the Van Duel in Squadron 42. They wanted boarding actions in there, maybe some EVA stuff. They wanted to add that to the game, but initially it was Wing Commander, where you sit in the cockpit and fly your fighter out and do things. And it's grown massively in scope since then. It wasn't a scope creep. I mean, there was if we get $4 million, this is what we're going to make. If we get $6 million, this is what we're going to make. I don't think they planned on $40 million. I can't imagine that was ever in the cards. But I don't see as much. That's been one concern we've seen on the forums a bit, is the scope creep concept, and that I don't see that as being the problem they're having. Everything they have in here is things they want to add to the game. They're just adding that out there as more incentive to bring in more funding. Although at this point, I don't even think they're really trying to bring much more funding in. They haven't done that many sales recently. They haven't been pushing new ships. They've been releasing like the updates in that, which is more for existing fans. So it's good to see. I've seen complaints, oh, it's a money grab, and I don't really get that impression from what they've done. But it's good to see that they kind of backed off the big fundraising push. And
Breaking news
just said they've hit 42 million.
Breaking news.
So you
just
heard it
hit
here
42.
first.
Wow. Literally, the people watching live just heard it here. Where's my letter to the chairman? Letter from the
Yeah,
chairman. Where is it?
I need it 10 seconds ago. God damn it!
They didn't hit 42 million. Look at this lying
Hit
piece
refresh.
of shit.
Hit refresh.
I just refreshed it.
Oh well. Okay. By the time you
Making
get
us
this
look
thing
the
edited and
fool.
cleaned up, hey, I gave credit.
All right. Well,
Okay, everyone listening right now, go buy a skin. See if you can get it to that 42 million point.
it's at 90%. It's pretty close.
It is pretty close. They've only got a little bit to go.
Now, I guess the reason maybe this is the video that made me think that Elite was going to be an MMO because they're showing this massive capital ship battle. Have you seen this video?
I probably have. I think I do recall that. And actually, they have that capital ship battle in one of the game modes in the premium
in the
beta.
alpha or the beta?
Yeah, alpha, beta, whatever we're in right now. It's I'm looking for the words here. It is a fighter bond. So this is a capital ship in trouble. They send out the distress call, and they say for every pirate you blow up, we'll give you 500 credits. So you're literally flying around this cap ship as it's shooting at pirates, trying to shoot down the pirates that are coming in, acting as an auxiliary defense to it. So there's a whole two ships fighting it out right here they don't have that I've seen, but they do have one ship that's being attacked by this like mosquito fleet of other fighters and sidewinders.
Gotcha. This is like a promotional video. I'm not sure if this is actually
this is a promotional video, but these elements, like all the elements you're seeing in this video, appear to be in the actual beta product. So they will eventually have two cap ships fighting it out, that kind of thing. So that'll be there.
Speaking of the capital ship battle, that's one of the things that we heard is the third version of the Arena Commander is going to have a capture the Idris mode.
Yeah,
that's freaking awesome.
That is awesome. You get to board an Idris is what I got from that.
Well, they specifically want to test the FPS elements and the boarding elements. That's so... I thought we were going to have to wait forever for those kind of things.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that when they get that stuff going, the FPS goes in there and we test it out, that we're going to have some real fun with getting the electronic warfare minigame in at the same time. Maybe you can open up or disable the engines of the Idris before it's actually down, something like that. I'm hoping that we can also, and we didn't get an answer on this, we can also customize out the load on the Hornet or the other ships that are in there, so you can come in with a Ghost that also has an electronic warfare package that sneaks in there and then hacks it from a short distance where they can't really fight off the signal with jamming or something like that. So we'll see. But the third version of that. Okay, so just to walk through what these versions are, the first one is going to be the single-seater fighters, and we know that they're going to have in it to start the Hornet F7A, the the 300i and Aurora. That was correct, right? That's the first three.
The Hornet, the 300i, and the Aurora.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's all of them, yeah.
They're going to add the Hornet, not Hornet, I'm sorry, the
Avenger.
Cutlass? The Avenger after
that's
that.
right.
And then the Cutlass comes, followed by the Freelancer. And then they go to the multi-crew ships. I think in the same one
that... Well, no. Okay. This is what the slide said. Okay, so it's Hornet, and somebody's going to correct me in the chat, but it's Hornet, it's 300i, and it's Aurora.
Aurora to start.
Yes.
That's the first release.
But they don't have the Scythe, or...
Yeah.
Is the Cutlass a 1 or 2-seater?
The Cutlass is a 2-seater.
Okay, so that's why the Cutlass isn't in there. They don't have the Scythe in the initial dogfighting alpha, I believe. But even that is going to be very limited to the people that actually have access to the Scythe. Although, actually, that was one of the subscriber benefits. If you're a subscriber for Star Citizen and you pay that $5 or $10 a month or whatever it is, then you'll be able to fly the Scythe in the dogfighting alpha or the Arena Commander.
Oh, interesting. That's a new benefit. Hey, go subscribers.
Patch 2 is going to include the Scythe as a playable character. It's in Patch 1, but it's only in the Horde mode. Yeah. So Patch 2 adds the Scythe as the other single seat. Then it adds the Cutlass because that's a multi-seat. It adds the Freelancer and the Constellation.
Yep. Okay.
Then Patch 3 adds the Idris and the Capture the Idris mode and boarding capabilities. That's my recollection from the slides.
Okay, no, that sounds exactly right. I could have swore they mentioned the Cutlass earlier, but they must have been mentioning the Avenger earlier.
They
What we
also
don't know.
the variants of the single seat fighters are coming in the second patch with the multi seat.
Oh,
So you're going to get your Super
awesome.
Hornets and your 325As and things like that when we also drop the freelancers
Or my
and the
350R.
Constellation. Yeah.
So the 350R, that's the one that's the wholly separate hull because it's got very different characteristics.
Yes.
And what we don't know about yet is when they're going to bring in the Retaliator, the Bomber, the Gladiator, that's what I'm looking for, or the last ship in that group there. Oh, the Caterpillar. So Retaliator.
The Caterpillar probably is going to be coming in like a 2.5 version, I think, something like that.
I have to hope we have it in time for 3 because I really want to try a boarding action with the Caterpillar.
Yeah, right?
Never mind, torpedoes away on the Retaliator. I want to try to board the Idris with the Caterpillar.
All right, final question. What do you think about the debate between the release it now crowd, like, I would totally play this mod just like it is, even with crashes, blah, 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 versus wait till it's done and send it to us in early May if that's how long it takes?
Honestly, I would say wait till it's ready. I kind of covered this earlier. One of the advantages of not having a publisher is not trying to shovel something out. Not to make my argument too hyperbolic, but there you go. I mean, wait till it's ready. Wait till people can actually play through it and enjoy the game. Getting the game that is so buggy as to be unplayable is not fun for anyone. It's not fun for devs who are chasing problems. It's not fun for players who can't get things started, and all it will get is complaints.
Another thing to consider is that a released game needs to be supported. Right now, there are basically no resources at CIG to supporting the hangar module, right? They don't have to go make an emergency patch because somebody fell through the floor in Sector 7G.
They just say don't go there.
Yeah.
And that's that.
But once they release Arena Commander, it's a playable product to the degree that players will expect hot fixes and things to fix any major issues, which means if some major bug crops up in a patch, they basically have to drop everything that they're planning to do and say, throw it out, we'll get to it later, we have to fix this. And that screws up timetables. When you screw up timetables, everything takes longer. So that's another thing to consider, is supporting a game takes resources above and beyond just building the game. Even if part of the support is just the continuation and fixing of bugs they were going to fix anyway, the fact that there's more pressure on you to build it faster, that causes a lot of problems too.
When you're getting 20 complaints a day and the community groups, community managers are saying, hey, we need this fixed now because they won't shut up about it. And the dev's like, okay, I don't care if they won't shut up. It's going to happen when it happens. It creates a bigger problem in that whole dynamic, and if they can just streamline that process, so much the better.
Yeah, really what it comes down to is alpha or no alpha, it needs to be a solid product, if unfinished. Unfinished where, turns out you can fly through things and they don't collide properly. That kind of a bug isn't horrible. That's the thing that can be found easy. But if it crashes on 50% of the player systems, or even 10% of the player systems because they had SLI engaged when they didn't need to, or some other stupid funky thing, that is going to turn people off. It's going to turn, the community against them. It's going to make people like, see, you have to have a publisher in order to QA properly and some other nonsense. So the better that they can put a stable release out, that's better for all concerned, if you ask me.
And we don't know yet what those minimum requirements are. I mean, they've talked about how they're going to stagger this release. Part of that staggering might be, hey, send us a hardware profile, and we'll see if you can even run this thing.
Yeah, they already mentioned subscribers are probably going to be the ones that get access to the game first, and then assuming that they don't have any major issues, then they would release that module to all the original backers, and then if they didn't have any major issues, then they would also release it to the veteran backers, and if they didn't, then so stagger the release so that you don't release a crappy thing to the most public of public people, the ones who just joined, whatever. Hopefully that'll be within a couple of days that everybody gets access to it.
And just so we're clear, that staggering, subscribers might be first, followed by it. That isn't just a guess. That is a actual interview from Pax, one of the devs talking about it.
Sure. Yep. That's correct. All right. I guess that's it. About the only thing left is to share my awesome Goon Rathy transferable, non-requisitioned abetment service authenticator, which has a QR code on the back, and when you scan it, you get a Get Out of Gank free card. All they need is your RSI name.
Which they're not getting from me, regardless.
And somebody turned to me and said, "So, Admiral Akbar, what do you think? Is it a trap?" And I said, "Of course it's a bloody trap."
Of course it's a trap. A million Bothans died bringing us this information.
Yeah, we must certainly respect that. All right, everybody. Bridger signing off.
Cali Thulu, you guys have a great week.
Whew, that was fun.
Well done. See, and you were worried we were going to go the hour. We're going almost an hour and a half.
Yeah, look at that. Holy crap. Sometimes I even underestimate my own ability to talk forever.
See, when Gray's not cramping my style. Just kidding.
Yeah, must have been. Yeah, Gray couldn't get here, unfortunately. He was at the event, and he had a great time, and he's probably exhausted. Because he flew Thursday night. He took the Wednesday night, he took the red eye, got there Thursday morning, and walked around waiting for us until noon. We caught up with him at noon. We played games. Then we went to the event after grabbing some food from a great little barbecue place we found.
Awesome.
Awesome pulled pork. Then we went to the event, we waited, and then we got in, and then we waited, and we waited some more, and then we waited some more, standing, because they wanted to fill the place as much as possible, so they pushed all the furniture into the tiny corners and hid them behind doors and things, so they could fit everybody. So we were standing there, and Gray was like, "It's okay because I have beer." And so then, like, when it got 9 o'clock, showed up, and it was still delayed, and we were still standing there, and then it was all worth it.
Wow, that sounds like a hell of a night though for him. Hell of a couple days for him.
Yeah, I imagine it, because right after that, 6 a.m. on Friday, he took the plane home. So. Then he had something he had to do tonight that he couldn't be here for, but he'll be here in a couple weeks, I think, and we'll be good. So yeah, looks like we're getting a lot of positive response so far from the community. Quite a few people recognized Gray and I and said how much they liked the show. So I wanted to pass that on to you, Callie, because certainly you're a big part of this.
I really couldn't have been there. It's about as far from me as you can get in this country.
True enough. But a couple of the guys that we hung with were really cool. They hung with us the whole time, and I can't remember anybody's name because I'm terrible with those details. I think Gray probably would have been able to, but I apologize. But I love those guys we were hanging out with. Not too many BO problems. I mean, in general, amongst the whole group.
In general,
that I noticed. But there were a few when I was walking by. I was like, I'm not coming back to that corner. Wow, none of the people that came up and said how awesome TOC was, though. They were all cool.
They were all fresh smelling, well powdered individuals.
Yeah, we're very hopeful to get Wingman or Ben or even Aaron or Chris on for a future episode to have a cool interview with them. They seemed very receptive to that idea.
It would be awesome to do, and if we can get down to one of their facilities, we'll definitely consider doing that. Punk Flamingo, to answer your question there you just posted, I do not play World of Warplanes. I have been reading a little bit about it. I have not looked into it past that because as much as I would love to game constantly, the games I have are keeping me busy, and I am just totally out of time with work. So
yeah, D. Kaiser, the guy we were talking at the beginning. There's actually a small bounty out for the guy that was yelling and heckling Chris. There's a not so small bounty and a fairly large bounty for his identity. Like
I just added on air 10k UEC to that get him
officially added.
10,000 UEC. So that's $10. That's how annoyed I was. I was $10 annoyed. And in fact, if you go to Reddit,
QQOP in the chat room, there's some QQOP guys there. That was cool. We met some guys from Imperium,
awesome.
And Ruach was really working the room. He was going all around, making friends everywhere. We met the lamp guys that were there with their own lamps. Explore was there too. I saw some of their pictures. I didn't meet them personally. I think Ruach might have talked to him. So yeah, it was a good time.
All right, and I actually found the bounty for his identity thread, so let me post that up there for you guys. Get to it.
All right, so I'm going to be shutting this down. Team Legacy is about to have a chapter meeting here where we're going to discuss, all this stuff. We're going to go over questions and things for our chapter. If you guys are interested in joining Team Legacy, we are a mercenary corporation or a company, whatever you want to call it. For Star Citizen, our goal is to be the elite cavalry, the backup. When people need assistance, we are not there in numbers, but we are there in discipline and quality of forces. So that is our goal. So we're looking for new pilots. So head on over to teamlegacy.net and sign up if you are interested, and we can tell you more about it. You can also find me on our TeamSpeak server, which is teamlegacy.net. That's very simple. So you can go ahead. If you find me on there, poke me. I'll be happy to tell you about the organization and what our goals are and things. And
Big Chunk 1, Team Legacy Gunships. Good times.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a group that spends half of the game drunk, unrepentinggaming.com. That's what we do. That's how we do every show, just for reference. So that should give you an exact idea of how I hold my alcohol.
There you go. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm going to shut her down here, and we'll catch you more. Feedback at talesofcitizens.com is how you can get a hold of us. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see improved or talked about on future episodes. We'll see you in 2 weeks on the 27th of April.
2 weeks away. All right, guys. Have a nice night.